This Worldview podcast is supported by the Fair Housing Legal Clinic at the John Marshall Law School in Chicago. For more than 20 years, clinical students have been offering assistance to Chicago area residents who face discrimination in their housing choices or in obtaining home loan financing. Learn more about the John Marshall Law School Fair Housing Legal Clinic at jmls.edu/fairhousing. Welcome to Worldview from WBEZ. I'm Jerome McDonnell. The opposition's new proposal at the Syrian peace talks doesn't mention Assad's removal. We'll discuss the strategy. Psychiatric patients need help, but do they also have a right to die? We'll talk about the uptick in psychiatric euthanasia in the Netherlands. And in our global activism segment, we'll find out about a group that considers our connection with the extraction industries. All that today on Worldview. The New York Times reports this morning that the Syrian opposition presented its most detailed vision yet of a political transition to end Syria's conflict. The 24-point plan, presented yesterday in Geneva, made no mention of President Bashar al-Assad or his ouster, but it outlined strong requirements for human rights and justice in a future Syria. Mohyeddin Kassar is president of the Syrian American Society. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
What does it mean for the opposition to drop this demand for Assad's ouster and not include that in this presentation here? It would seem like that was the whole goal of the revolution. Is this a big concession here?
This is a big failure, in fact, and I think it is a big failure for the United States diplomacy, because those who presented this proposal means they feel they got abandoned by the United States, the major ally in the area for us. And I don't think this proposal will fly. There is so much a concession on the side of those opposition, but even with this step back on their side is not going to be agreed upon with the regime. The regime doesn't want to listen to anything of that. There is some element in the regime might think that the bloodshed is got enough and we need to stop it. But the regime itself, it's keep going, and his policy didn't change, even under the negotiation now.
It sounds like what the opposition is presenting has some elements that are rather forgiving towards the Syrian regime. They want to keep the army. They want to keep the institutions. There's a sense that the infrastructure has got to stay. Is that a big concession?
No, this is not a concession, because everybody wants the army to stay, wants the institutions of the state to stay, but wants the philosophy of this institution to change. These institutions until today, until the revolution start, has one goal, is to serve the dictatorship. Now, we don't want this institution to go away, but we want it to change direction, to change purpose. The purpose is to save democracy and elected government. That's what at least the revolution is for. So now if they wanted to continue this institution, and we don't have power on this institution under this proposal, so that will not achieve the goals of the revolution. The proposal has to be more details about that, and I didn't read in it myself. I didn't read in it something saying it's okay that Assad continue, but this is big step back for the opposition, and it reflects how opposition, or those who are negotiating, not those who are in revolution, those who are negotiating, look at the power balance between them and the regime.
What do you make of the role that Russia is playing right now? It sounds like they're calling certain shots when it comes to the Homs relief situation. They've decided that it's too westernized, and they want to put a different kind of sheen on it, and so the whole thing is kaput.
I think, Senator McCain put it very nicely, and he understood correctly the issue here. He said to, Ambassador Ford, you sending some anti-bullet vest to the Free Syrian Army while Russian are sending them airplanes, Scud missile, etc., heavy armament. So the commitment of the International Committee toward the people of Syria is not balanced, not even able to match what Russia is representing to the Syrian regime. And this is very bad things, because that means United States government is handling the Syria to the Iranian and to the Russian.
And they're bombing the wits out of Syria as we speak. There's been some serious bombing campaigns as these talks proceed.
While the talks is proceeding, while Kerry is talking in Geneva, in the same moment, in the same second, imagine a helicopter flying off Lincoln Park area and just throw a barrel of bombs, a barrel of explosive. Do you think any militant will be hurt with those, or only civilian in very dense area like Lincoln Park of Chicago? So that's the regime's policy. And this policy by itself telling me that, or telling everybody who can think about it, that the regime has no military exit. When you have a military exit, you don't go bomb just buildings filled with the civilian. So it is a helpless gesture of the regime. And we do not ask United States to fight for us. All what we needed is stopping our friend or preventing our friends from arming us. It is a very simple question. United States administration in the last 3 years did the best to prevent Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and other friendly countries to supply us with weapons. We don't want anybody to fight for us. We can fight for ourselves. And the regime almost fall if there was no intervention from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard of Iran and Hezbollah of Lebanon. Last week, one of the leadership of Hezbollah, military leadership, admitted that the only way to control the tanks of the Syrian army, the regime's army, is to have in every tank a militant of Hezbollah, so he can shoot anybody who doesn't obey orders inside the tank. The tank has a crew of 4.
Yep.
So this is where we stand here, and unfortunately, I was there this summer, and the feeling there gave it to me that we've been abandoned, and this is really not good for our foreign policy.
Is there something that the United States should be doing differently at these talks? Can the United States go to Russia and say, you should stop sending all these weapons to Syria, and make that stick? I put, several conditions that to start the Geneva II. And I said, if we start with that, we can get into the solution. One of them is the total suspension of delivery of arms to Damascus. If we had imposed that before Geneva II, the regime will think twice before walling this negotiation, before being so stubborn in the negotiation. As long as the regime think that is supported by unconditional love of the Iranian and Russian regime, he's not going to respond to any negotiation. And we saw several opportunities where the negotiation in Geneva was a monologue by the regime's team. They're just monologuing or repeating themselves to boredom about the same ideas. So United States has a lot of leverage but is not using it. So do you think the United States doesn't use it because they think they can't stop Iran or Russia from arming up the Syrians? They're like, we can't stop it, so we're not going to bring it up. I
think I would love you to ask this question to Senator McCain. I think my answer for that is simple answer, there is the lack of will in the White House, and there is lack of understanding of the long consequences of our position here. A leader has to lead unless we are in trouble.
There are folks who still argue that Syria is not a strategically important place, and we could do more harm than good by getting more involved there.
I disagree with that, because I think the Syrian case is the incubator case for anybody who want to change something in the Middle East. It's a case of a pure, specific peaceful revolution. If we succeed to turn it into a success story, this is going to keep going around, because this is incubator of a new system. We lack this incubator of a new system in the area, and if we do that, that would be a good example. On the strategic level, I think if we do not succeed in Syria, there is so many things in the next 50 years of foreign affair, American foreign policy is going to be traced back to Obama's administration.
Mohyeddin Kassar is president of the Syrian American Society. Thanks a lot for joining us and talking about the latest with Syria.
Thank you very much.